So what is identity architecture? Some of you have asked me what identity architecture is. And in a nutshell, identity is about who you are and what moves through you. It's not your ID card, it's not your passport, it's not your name, it's not your story. It's who you are and what moves through you. Now, that's a big deal. But let me address the practitioners right now, because you already help people manage their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, but you probably never notice that clients sometimes they get better for a while, but not for a long time. And why? Why is because real transformation doesn't happen on the surface. We all have techniques and modalities and this kind of stuff, but transformation needs to happen at identity level. That's how it works. In the wholeness of the self, of who you are, all of your roles, all of your masks, all of your shadows, all of your anima animus, all of your souls, all of that needs to happen at that level. And happily, I created Feelfulness, Metaconscious Design, with neurolanguage, which are simple words that speak directly to the experience, speak directly to the identity, speak directly of who you are and what moves through you. And this is fascinating. It's just simply fascinating, and um, it needs to be included. But let me tell you about neuroscience. Neuroscience helps us see what's going on at the neurochemical level. Um, Everybody talks about the amygdala and how the amygdala reacts and how it holds emotion and how it gets triggered and all of that. But let's go a little deeper. It is the hippocampus that stores the memories. And those memories down the road create the experience of life or recreate experiences that possibly they've been addressed once, but they need to be readdressed. And especially with trauma, it is these memories that are stored in a hippocampus that we need to remove them. And the only way to remove them is through identity work. Of course, hypnosis is marvelous of healing trauma work, but even that needs to go deeper into the identity level. But then we have insula that tells us how we feel and what's happening in the body. Then we have the basal ganglia that runs the habits. So everything, all the habits and everything that happens in the amygdala, hippocampus, basal ganglia gets stored. Now insula, amygdala, hippocampus, insula, everything gets stored into the basal ganglia, all of these outer habits. But the beauty is that the prefrontal cortex helps you think and choose. Think and choose, not just think on demand to what you need to pay attention because we are overwhelmed and bombarded with information, but think and choose. And now with Feelfulness, with Metaconscious Design, I help you choose what you want to feel. And that's a big deal. I help you choose the state of being you want to be in, and I choose how to generate a state of being. This is a big, big deal that involves all of these neuroscientific parts I mentioned earlier. But when all of these parts of the self work together, and then a person begins to feel more whole and more steady. The identity is not fragmented anymore. All of us have our identity fragmented to some degree. Well, not me. Not me anymore, because I teach you how to architect and re-architect identity. But because of identity fragmentation, it is why clients repeat the same patterns, and sometimes even therapists, they fall into their blind spots. And it is very important to know that a therapist become therapists. Many, 98% of therapists, they become therapists because they've known pain and they want to help heal. They want to make things better. But what is talked about very little, it's the wounded healer, and not just the wounded healer, but the victim rescuer aspect of that particular triangle, which I address deeply in my book. So the wounded healer works, the work that comes from the wounded healer is affects the client much better, brings better results with a client, but the work that comes from the victim rescuer repeats patterns that keep identity fragmented. And this is something we need to pay a lot of attention to. Very rarely, that especially us in hypnotherapy are not a wounded healer. We need to become, okay, how do I want to word this? Well, we need to rise above it. Well, it sounds so cliche, rise above it, but keep all of the good parts of the wounded healer, all of the drive that drives us, the will, the passion to go help others. Learn a little bit about empaths not being here on a planet to fix others and not being here on a planet to feel other stuff. That's quite some information I'm going to reveal to you. But when this practitioner, the wounded healer, moves and begins to administer from victim rescuer, this is where the clients will not receive transformation from the inside. This is where surface level work occurs. And we have a lot of techniques, we have a lot of modalities, they work great, but how deep do they go? How deep do they work in a transformation in the neuroscience, right? And a very important aspect that I want to bring out is that you as a therapist need to become the medicine the client needs, right? You as a therapist need to become the medicine the client needs. But how do you do that? Well, you do that with generating a state of being. And this is what identity architecture is about. And you generate a state of being by combining a thought and a feeling with a practice with specific neuro words. The neuro language that I have developed in Feelfulness, in metaconscious design, are specific words, simple words, right? But specific words that speak to identity, who you are, and what moves through you. And you don't have to make an elaborate sentence, an elaborate story about some of these words. Sometimes all you need to say is this word, and the client receives where they are not and where that word doesn't move through them. And this is what identity level work begins to flourish, right? And then this is what I prepared as you're going to receive this. Let me show this. Yeah, a little bit of word triangle, a little bit of neuroscience. This is to accompany this big book, which we're not going to read this big book in in 3 minutes. It's not going to happen. So I prepared this for you as an introductory and something that will be very interesting to you. And then also I prepared this very little booklet, tiny little booklet that explains to you, it goes over the skeptics, explains to you why metaconscious design in therapeutic methodology is what we need today, and why identity architecture is what needs to happen to help the clients become better, and why we as a practitioner need to do our own identity work, because when you make yourself wholeness, when you work on your own identity, when you learn to generate states of being, after you do that for a while, and when you understand without words, but when you understand experientially through feelfulness, how that works through you, you will know how to guide the client on how to feel that medicine. After that, you learn how to become the medicine that the client needs by you generating the states of being and radiating that through the client, not in a spiritual, sophisticated way, but in a very simple neuroscientific way. It's the brain entrainment through the mirror neurons. This happens all the time. The mirror neurons, brain entrainment. Sometimes we like people, sometimes we don't like people because of this mechanism, right? If we have a lesser deployment of mirror neurons, then, or some do have lesser deployment of mirror neurons, and they're not as affected by now I don't want to say negativity, but by what others bring into their presence. While others have a bigger deployment of mirror neurons and are not necessarily sensitive, because it's not sensitivity, it's neuroscience, right? But through healing in therapeutic intervention and coaching and definitely hypnotherapy is working with the structure of identity itself, the architecture, right? So when we identify where the identity is being fragmented, we understand where the architecture, there's some very basic layers of the architecture, like you will find some of them in here, and then here's the secret. Let me see if you can see it. Capable, certain, and curious. That sits at a very basic level of identity architecture for everybody, for humans and kitty cats and puppy dogs altogether. Capable, certain, curious create experiences, and individual words. Capable creates experiences that has to do with who you are and what moves through you. Certain, at the same time, the same has to do with who you are and what moves through you. And curious, again, who you are and at what moves through you. So when you combine all of these, the basics of the architecture of identity, then you begin to add other neural language, which it's really made simple. I mean, I made that so simple. And why me? Because I lived it. I've went through it. I've experienced it. And at the time, I didn't even know this was identity level work, but this is what it ended up to be. And for me, it's a little easier to understand it and present it because I am bilingual. I was born in Romania. Now I live in the United States. I'm Romanian and I'm American. And I'm Romanian American and American Romanian. So initially there was a fragmentation of identity when I initially moved in here. I wasn't Romanian anymore. I had to become American, but I was Romanian. And then I'm American, but I'm not Romanian. So when I'm with Romanians, I'm two Americans. And then when I'm with Americans, I'm two Romanian. And it gets so convoluted. And I got to a point where that doesn't exist in my experience, although this can exist in their experience, right? So, and then when I begin to generate the state of being that the client needs, I intentionally become the medicine. I generate the sense of being that the client, the client needs the medicine of. It's just miracles begin to happen, and it is quick. And then when you see the client becoming more together and more wholesome in who they are, then miraculous transformation begins to happen. it's this is the work. This is the work that needs to happen. Yeah. And here, this little booklet over here, I made quite enough copies, so I'm gonna make sure that everybody that comes to my presentation gets a copy of this. I have this printed on paper. It's really tiny. Look at the difference. Yeah, there's a difference. So and make sure that everybody comes to my presentation is gonna get that, and I also have a digital copy you can bring out on your cell phone, and then it's got a nice flip book. It makes a nice sound as if you are reading a paper book. By what I want to leave you with, is that this identity work, it is the big shift that needed to happen, and it is happening now. I've made it happen. I've observed so many different approaches that work very well at some level, but then what about the other levels? So I have yet to observe, whether experienced or the research about these approaches, that none of them work at identity level. And then when you begin to work with who a person is, when you begin to make wholesome the person that you are, and then when you begin to radiate that to become the medicine that the client needs, it is the most amazing experience. Now, let me tell you, it's not flip a page of the book and that happens. No, it is through repetition, but it is wonderful work. It is wonderful work. So now you are gifted with this understanding, and I want to gift you in this class and even more. So make sure you attend my presentation and get some goodies and qualify for some gifts. I have some gifts. I'm not going to show you now what gifts I have, because I want you to come to my presentation, and I'm going to have a vendor booth, and my banner is quite big. And of course, it's got this color on it, the red and the white, and it says evolution on it. So you're not gonna miss me. You're not gonna miss my banner. You will see. So make sure you stop by, you say hello, and chit chat a little bit. But most importantly, you stop at my presentation. Make sure you receive this and you receive this and my presentation layout, and then, of course, my unmistakable presence and the state of being that I'm going to generate for you. But the cherry on top are the metacognition exercise I'm going to walk you through. Simple, very simple, but extremely significant. So I'll see you there. All right.